Welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're going to discuss how Kaiju number 8, Kafka No, will fight all other numbered kaiju and his progress towards his goal of fighting beside Mina. If you've watched Season 1, you'll recall that Kafka No was put on trial and fought Kikoru's father, who possessed the power of Kaiju number 2. Without further ado, let's proceed to the video and see what will happen in Season 3. Kikoru received a text from Mina stating that the disposal of Kafka had been put on hold. This news filled Kikoru with joy. However, she quickly sobered, remembering that she needed to become stronger. Otherwise, if the time came when Kafka became ravaged, she would not be able to stop him. The door beside Kikoru opened and the person entering apologized for making her wait. Kikoru stood up straight out of respect, and when the caller entered, she was surprised by his considerable height. It turned out that his name was Eiji Hasegawa, the vice commander of the first unit, and he would guide Kikoru to the commander's room. As they walked there, Eiji told Kikoru that until the Tachikawa base was restored, she would temporarily join their first unit, to which Kikoru agreed. Kikoru thought to herself that the first unit was the strongest core unit in Japan, a mass monster country, and she felt it was the perfect environment to polish her skills. When they arrived at the commander's room, Eiji knocked, and Kikoru expected to learn a lot from the strongest unit in Japan. But upon seeing the commander, it appeared he was a game addict and a couch potato who seemed to do nothing but play games. He was intensely focused, certain they would win and he would achieve his coveted platinum rank. However, all his efforts were ruined when Eiji kicked him, causing him to fly into his console. The commander was furious at Eiji because it looked like his PS5 was broken, and he asked if Eiji was a demon. Eiji irritably replied that he had instructed him to clean his room because he was coming over at 2 p.m. The commander heard him but argued that it was his freedom to choose whether to do it or not after hearing the instruction. As a result, Eiji kicked him again and told him not to say such things in a dignified manner, knowing that he was just lazy. The commander was worried about his damaged Gundam toy after he fell on it. He was furious with Eiji and shouted that it was his room, so wasn't it his right to use it however he wanted? Eiji retorted that it wasn't his room and that it was the property of the defense force. Kikoru was speechless as the commander continued to be annoyed, insisting that Eiji should clean his room because it bothered him when it was dirty. Eiji then picked up their commander and agreed to his offer. He ordered some troops to clean up the mess, which angered the commander because they were meddling with his things, forcing him to clean up himself. After that, Eiji brought their commander over to Kikoru and introduced him as Gen Narumi. Kikoru's expression was unreadable, and she wondered what her role would be there since she felt no respect for their commander. Narumi then asked if Kikoru was Mr. Isao's daughter, which surprised her, but she quickly composed herself and thought that despite his behavior, he was still her superior. Because of this, she saluted him and introduced herself, stating that she would be under the care of their first unit so they could give her any orders. Narumi told her she didn't need to be humble because he didn't need formal greetings. Narumi explained that there was only one thing he wanted from Kikoru as the commander of the first unit. Kikoru wondered what it was, and just as she was about to ask what Narumi meant by that, an alarm went off. Narumi commented that it was an attack and perfectly timed. Kikoru would understand what he meant in battle, so he gave her permission to study it from the VIP seat. In the next scene, the narrative shifts to Kawasaki Ward in New Oda, where a giant kaiju is attacking, heading towards Tokyo Bay and having already passed the first anti-monster bank and moving northbound. They reported that the first unit was on its way to subjugate it. Currently, evacuation alerts were being issued for Kawasaki Ward, Tsurumi Ward, Kanagawa Ward, and Nishi Ward. The kaiju screeched loudly as the first unit began to restrain it. Eiji ordered their first battery to target the left side of the monster, which they promptly did. Next, he instructed the sixth battery to attack. While this was happening, Kikoru watched from an army helicopter, amazed at the first unit's control over the monster's path. She also noticed that this was possible because each troop member there had extraordinary abilities, and she believed all the first unit's troop members had a force release of 40% or more, stronger than those of platoon leader class. They were informed that their luring to the planned subjugation point was complete, and Narumi promptly invited her to move. Narumi prepared to jump from the helicopter, explaining that he did not demand things like manners, appearance, diligence, or dignity from Kikoru, but only wanted one thing. While speaking, he jumped from the helicopter, which surprised Kikoru. Narumi drew his weapon while in free fall and aimed it at the monster. He soon landed on the kaiju's neck and stabbed it solidly, causing a strong electric shock. After his weapon penetrated the kaiju, he pulled the trigger, causing continuous shooting inside the kaiju, and soon the giant monster exploded. Parts of the kaiju flew around, raining down on the area. Narumi then stated that all he wanted from Kikoru was for her to demonstrate overwhelming power. Narumi crouched on his sword, with it still embedded in the corpse of the beast, stating that he did not need a well-mannered, incapable person. Kikoru was intimidated and commented on how interesting it was. Kikoru also thought then that this was Gen Narumi, Japan's strongest anti-monster fighter. In the next scene, Kikoru was reading a newspaper about an achievement of the defense force, and she wondered where Mina was. Kikoru pouted, and we got info that she was now currently the assistant to the commander of the first unit. When Narumi saw the news on his smartphone, he became angry at the creator because they made it look like Mina had defeated the kaiju he had taken down, due to the large size of her picture compared to his. It was trending again that Mina had defeated the monster, which he found irritating since he was the actual one who defeated it. Comments were made suggesting that Mina was receiving all the credit, which must be causing Narumi distress, and that Narumi was being cringeworthy and the commander should act with more class. Kikoru was stunned again that the strongest fighter in Japan was an internet warrior. Narumi's phone rang, prompting Kikoru to ask if he needed to answer it, noting it had been ringing for a while. Narumi said it was fine, probably just a boring meeting with Isao and Eiji staring at each other with serious faces discussing trivial matters. He questioned why he would need to go to such an unpleasant place in the middle of the day. Suddenly, Eiji arrived, kicked him again, and said it was necessary because it was part of the job. Kikoru simply sighed while drinking her water. Eiji pinched Narumi and dragged him to the meeting, making Narumi question if it was really that important. Eiji explained that their discussion would be about monster number 8, which made Narumi stare and caught Kikoru's attention. Meanwhile, Kafka was doing push-ups in his cell, thinking that 5 days had passed and he hadn't accomplished anything. He remembered what Isao had told him about proving his usefulness, so he wondered what he needed to do and decided quickly that he would do anything those people wanted for his comrades who also believed in him. The door suddenly opened, startling him, and it turned out that some troop members had come to escort him, prompting him to think that this was the moment he had been waiting for. Upon their arrival in the chief's room, he was surprised to find himself beside Isao and Narumi. He was baffled and wondered to himself why the commander of the first unit was there. Pondering the situation, Isao called Kafka and immediately announced that he was assigning him to the first unit. Kafka was shocked, and Isao explained that by combining the monster considered one of the strongest in history with the strongest anti-monster fighter, they would create the most powerful unit capable of defeating any monster disaster. He was giving Kafka a chance to demonstrate his strength in the next subjugation and to convince everyone. Kafka stared and thought that being needed as number 8 was not exactly what he wanted, but he needed to survive for now. However, just as he was about to accept Isao's words, Narumi immediately objected to the order. Kafka turned around, and even Kikoru and Eiji were speechless. Narumi argued that his presence should be enough for the strongest unit. As Narumi was about to leave, Isao insisted that it was not sufficient, causing Narumi to twitch. Isao informed him that Kaiju No. 9, capable of transforming into a human and currently hiding, was there, as well as Kaiju No. 10, who commanded a myriad of monsters to attack the defense force. It was clear that these were different from any monsters they had faced so far. He added that they were making daily advances to overcome many monster disasters, but these continued to undergo unknown evolutions. He pointed out to Narumi that catastrophes happen when they become arrogant, thinking they can handle anything, and these catastrophes occur in ways that deeply disrupt their common knowledge. Because of this, they also need to adapt and evolve. Narumi, Kafka, and Eiji looked on, and Narumi sighed, realizing the level of faith Isao had in him. He looked at Kafka and said it would be more efficient to use Kaiju No. 8 as a weapon for his use. Kafka was shocked, and so was Kikoru. Just as Isao was about to speak, Kafka called out to Narumi and explained that he could not die until he had fulfilled what he needed to do. Kafka saluted and said that because of this, he would grasp anything that might help him, showing his respect for being under the first unit and Narumi. They looked at each other, and Narumi let it go, commenting that he did not care about Kafka's thoughts, circumstances, or determination, he just needed to show results and power. If Kafka caused trouble again, he would immediately deal with it and make him his suit. After that, Narumi left the chief's room, and Kafka saluted again and thanked him. In the next scene, there was a sudden earthquake in one area, causing people there to worry and comment that such events had been happening frequently recently, with others saying it would subside soon. However, instead of subsiding, the earthquake intensified, shaking the ground even more. The paths and buildings began to crumble under the force, and the people there were terrified. Many buildings were damaged due to the quake, and it turned out that a large hole had formed in the middle of Shinagawa City. Terrified people wondered what was happening there, and when they looked into the hole, it seemed they saw eyes. It turns out that the hole was filled with numerous insect-type monsters, and they immediately began swarming the surface area. While this was happening, we go to the base of the first unit, where they had just finished their morning training. Kikoru was very pumped up, thinking she couldn't waste any time, and she immediately went to Narumi to tell him that today was the day he would join her for one-on-one training. However, when Kikoru opened the door to Narumi's room, she found him in a bowing position, which puzzled her. The reason he was kneeling was that he was asking Kikoru for money because he didn't know why his salary from last week had suddenly disappeared, prompting Kikoru to point out that Narumi had bought many Amazon products. Kikoru was angry that their commander was asking for money from a subordinate, so Narumi explained that he was just asking for financial power, to which Kikoru refused and insisted that he join her for training. Suddenly, an alarm went off, grabbing their attention, and Eiji arrived to say it was time to work. In the next scene, they suited up along with the other troops. Narumi commented that he was in the middle of an important negotiation. After that, he led the first unit to move out to address the kaiju that had emerged in Shinagawa. He boldly declared that they would beat them up. In Shinagawa, people were running for their lives while being chased by a giant kaiju that resembled an ant. During this, a broadcaster was reminding residents in the area to act immediately to save their lives and evacuate to the designated shelter. As people checked their smartphones, a man mentioned a less crowded route to the R56 shelter, suggesting they go that way. There was a brother and sister left beside a car, with the little sister crying out of fear. Her brother tried to comfort her, assuring her that the first unit would arrive soon. He said that Narumi would destroy all the monsters there, so they shouldn't worry. Suddenly, they heard something snap nearby, and when they turned, they saw one of the monsters staring at them. The siblings trembled with fear, but the brother bravely stood up to shield his sister. He kept thinking that Narumi would arrive. As they faced the giant monster and were about to be eaten, his thoughts came true. Narumi arrived and immediately stabbed the kaiju in the back. The monster was quickly defeated, and the siblings were initially shocked but soon filled with joy upon seeing their idol. Narumi then called the young boy and told him that as a punishment for calling an honorable commander without honorifics, he should go home alive and post "Commander Narumi is so cool" 10 times on social media using his mother's smartphone. The boy quickly agreed, and other troops escorted them to a safe place. Afterward, Narumi inquired about the status of his platoon leaders, Kanashi and Miyake. Kanashi confirmed that they had identified 4 monsters in their area and expected to defeat them quickly, while Miyake reported that their subjugation was already complete. Narumi instructed them to first assess the overall situation, prioritize the safety of the citizens, and address the targets based on the circumstances, otherwise, they would direct them to the subjugation sites. His subordinates agreed and immediately took action. He then contacted Kikoru and Kafka, referring to Kafka as Monster Number 8, and ordered them to exterminate all the monsters entering the subjugation area. He added that the residents in that area had been evacuated, so they should not hold back their strength and deliver results. Both Kafka and Kikoru were determined to perform impressively, steeling themselves to demonstrate their true capabilities to their captain. Additionally, this was Kafka's first opportunity to showcase his real battle usefulness to Director General Isao. The first batch of kaiju had arrived in the neutralization zone, so Kikoru went out to confront them, wielding her giant axe. Narumi ordered his platoon leader, Ren Shinomiya, to provide backup for Kikoru in case it was needed. However, a kaiju suddenly splattered in front of them, and it was Kikoru who was responsible for that. It only took a strong horizontal slash from Kikoru to completely kill the kaiju. Some of the senior officers were surprised by the strength Kikoru displayed, yet Kikoru herself was not satisfied with her own performance level, feeling her speed was still too slow compared to Vice Captain Hashina. Moreover, Captain Mina's attack force was stronger than hers. These thoughts circled in Kikoru's mind as she killed her second kaiju. Narumi and Ren were impressed with her offensive efficiency, and even Kafka cheered her on. Then suddenly, a kaiju appeared behind platoon leader Ren, resulting in her being reprimanded by Kikoru. Ren seemed slightly annoyed by Kikoru's arrogance, but she actually liked her personality. Eiji and one of the platoon leaders even teased Narumi because their new girl was performing better now than Narumi did in his first year with the defense force. However, Narumi was not in the mood for jokes due to their strange encounter that night. Occasionally, it's normal for ant-type kaiju to stray onto the surface, but they are normally encountered only in tunnels. The situation was eerie because of their massive simultaneous appearance in the middle of the city. This was very similar to the kaiju raid at Tachikawa base a few months ago. Thus, it was likely that there was also an intellectual leader guiding the kaiju army they were currently facing. Suddenly, AG received a report stating that several kaiju had entered the western region of the neutralization zone. Kafka Hibino was assigned to this area, so now it was his time to shine. Meanwhile, at the temporary base of their headquarters, Kafka was being closely watched by the researchers and experts brought by Isao. Also present were higher-ups who disagreed with Isao's decision to spare the life of Kaiju No. 8. Kafka would fight arrived. Kafka used a partial transformation because he felt he didn't yet need to use his full strength. He also incorporated the 1% power from their uniform to jump high and punch hard. However, his attack seemed to have no effect on the kaiju. The kaiju attacked him using its mouth, flinging him away, but Kafka quickly recovered midair before landing. The higher-ups were puzzled why Kafka had not yet transformed into Kaiju No. 8. Kafka was hesitant to reveal his full kaiju form due to what happened in his last fight with Isao. He was afraid of losing control over his own body again. Suddenly, the kaiju shot acid from its mouth, but Kafka was able to dodge it. The acid was so powerful that it quickly dissolved the concrete floor. Kafka realized this was not the time to fight half-heartedly, as he needed to do everything to achieve his goal of joining Mina. So he began to transform, and high-energy readings were detected from him. However, the transformation process suddenly halted midway, puzzling both Kafka and the researchers as to why this happened. This gave a big opening to the enemy, who hit him hard, causing even the debris behind them to shatter. Kafka tried to transform again, but nothing happened no matter how hard he tried. The situation was pretty anticlimactic, and even the Shinomiya father and daughter were worried about him. It was very sudden and unexpected, and they had no idea what was happening. Then suddenly, another separate reading appeared in their area. Due to its strength, it was likely a Hanju. Narumi and Eiji speculated that the leader of the kaiju might now reveal itself. When they asked about the location of the reading, they learned it was coming directly from beneath Kafka's location. Kaiju No. 9 emerged from underground riding an ant kaiju, and its main target was Kafka. Kafka was stunned to see Kaiju No. 9 emerge from the head of the ant kaiju. Narumi, Eiji, and Kikoru grew anxious when they confirmed that the leader of the kaiju army had indeed appeared. Kaiju No. 9's gaze upon the area was deep and intense. He was searching for Kaiju No. 8, whom he had sensed just moments before. However, failing to locate him, he realized that Kafka might be his human form. Kafka became worried upon learning that, like him, the enemy had the ability to detect fellow kaiju. Suddenly, he was struck by a bullet in his left shoulder. It turned out that the enemy planned to torture him until he revealed his kaiju form. Kafka writhed in pain, pondering whether he could transform now. Narumi inquired about the status of Kafka's transformation into Kaiju No. 8 at headquarters, but unfortunately, Kafka was still unable to transform. Vice Captain Eiji panicked, fearing that they might completely lose Kaiju No. 8. Narumi quickly took action to help Kafka personally, but the ground beneath him suddenly shook. The road collapsed, and a large ant-type kaiju emerged from below. Moreover, another kaiju reading appeared. Atop its head, another Kaiju No. 9 emerged, which was utterly unexpected and shocked everyone. Narumi wondered whether Kaiju No. 9 had the ability to clone itself. Given the situation, Ren realized that Narumi could not help Kafka, so she decided to assist him herself. However, she too was suddenly unable to leave because she had a large kaiju to fight. This kaiju was one of the ones they had killed earlier. Apparently, like the 3rd Division had experienced, the kaiju corpses suddenly revived all at once. If this was indeed similar to what had happened before, it meant that the fortitude of the revived kaiju was even greater. What's worse, the strength of the kaiju they were now fighting had increased significantly. All the disadvantages they were facing began to accumulate when Kaiju No. 9 arrived. After Kaiju No. 9 had revived the kaiju and deployed stronger ones to keep them all busy, he set his sights on Kafka to kill him and steal the power of Kaiju No. 8. Kafka was helpless against the enemy's rapid-fire bullets, and the ant-type kaiju gave him no chance to stand. The enemy was immensely strong and dangerous, and he needed to kill it immediately. So he tried to transform again, but to no avail. He grew frustrated with himself and despaired as he could not understand what was happening to him. Kaiju No. 9 had prepared an overwhelming number of bullets and bid farewell to Kafka, who had nowhere to run. But just in time, an ally arrived to rescue Kafka. Kaiju No. 9 was suddenly split in half, bewildered by the source of the attack. It turned out that Kikoru was the heroine. Besides splitting the enemy, she also knocked down the ant-type kaiju it was riding. Kafka felt a sense of relief when he saw Kikoru. The enemy, while regenerating, sensed something familiar about the girl, but Kikoru simply told him it was no longer important to remember who she was because she was here to finish him off. The enemy, who was regenerating, and Kikoru, who was focusing, stared at each other for a moment. Before Isao could leave his chair, Itami quickly restrained him. Itami knew that Isao planned to deploy himself in the battle using weaponized Kaiju No. 2 should Kaiju No. 8 go berserk again. However, Itami reminded him that using the weaponized Kaiju reduced his lifespan by several years each time. Isao assured Itami that he had not forgotten that fact. Indeed, he viewed this crisis as a valuable test for the next generation of Defense Force commanders. When Kikoru learned that Kafka was still unable to transform, she suspected that Kaiju No. 9 might be responsible for suppressing it. The enemy then launched a devastating attack that had previously injured Kikoru, but Kikoru had significantly improved since then and could now dodge the projectiles from Kaiju No. 9. The two formulated a plan. Kikoru planned to strike the enemy hard again, and when it regenerated after being wounded, Kafka would seize the opportunity to finish it off. Kafka should be ready to try transforming again, as there might be a brief opening for him to unleash his power while the enemy used energy to regenerate. Reluctantly, Kikoru admitted to Kafka that she needed the help of Kaiju No. 8 to defeat the enemy. Thus, they began their assault. The enemy, displeased with facing the two of them alone, split into two separate bodies, greatly surprising Kikoru. The enemy rained bullets on them again, with Kikoru parrying the bullets aimed at her while Kafka dodged most of them. Despite Kikoru's experience in her previous battle with Kaiju No. 9, she still struggled to predict its moves. As they fought, another Kaiju prepared to flank her from behind. The enemy fired bullets again, this time focusing all its fire on Kikoru, who struggled to dodge and parry. Consequently, she was hit in the stomach area. Kafka shouted in extreme concern for Kikoru, especially as the enemy targeted her for its next attack. But in the blink of an eye, Kikoru suddenly appeared in front of the enemy's face. The enemy was startled by her strength, speed, and resilience in fighting him. Kikoru, tired of her previous losses, was now determined to be the savior of the day. She battered the enemy severely due to her extreme speed and power. Itami could see how much her skills had improved, even comparing Kikoru to her mother, Hikari Shinomiya, who looked just like her and was also a formidable Defense Force officer. Hikari was previously the 2nd Division captain of the Defense Force. She fought like a true Valkyrie and wielded the weaponized Kaiju No. 4. Hikari was a well-known public figure, often appearing on television. Kikoru, Hikari's daughter, was incredibly proud of her mother when Hikari returned home from work exhausted at night. Kikoru eagerly greeted her, excited to spend time together. Isao, Kikoru's father, would tell her not to disturb her resting mother, but no matter how tired Hikari was, she always found the strength and time to play with her daughter. Kikoru told Hikari that her classmates had seen her on TV earlier at school. Hikari asked if anyone was hurt in the morning incident, according to the news, and Kikoru said no, delighting and relieving her mother. When Hikari put Kikoru down, her daughter noticed a hidden injury on her mother's arm. Hikari explained that she had fought a strong kaiju earlier but was not badly hurt. Suddenly, Kikoru declared her desire to join the defense force to protect her mother from harm. Hikari's parents were surprised by their daughter's fortitude, and Hikari smiled, telling Kikoru that she would also save her when she was in danger. However, during a series of cataclysms caused by the notorious Kaiju No. 6, Hikari died on duty. The entire country mourned her loss, and all who loved her grieved deeply. Hikari's sacrifice prevented many more casualties from Kaiju No. 6. Filled with self-reproach, Kikoru called herself a liar, feeling that she had failed to save her mother from danger. When she saw the intense, pent-up anger in her father's eyes, she restrained herself from crying. As Kikoru fought Kaiju No. 9, she remembered her last promise to her mother, that in exchange for her failure to save her, Kikoru would continue to strengthen herself to ensure that she would not let any person come to harm and she would not allow a comrade to die on any mission she was part of. Kikoru's memories of her mother gave her strength beyond her limits. Kikoru's powerful horizontal slash missed Kaiju No. 9, leaving her vulnerable as the ant kaiju below targeted her with explosive bullets. Fortunately, Kafka had enough strength left to knock the enemy off balance, saving Kikoru but injuring his left leg further. This brief moment allowed Kikoru to recover and prepare her next move. She employed the squadron-style axe technique No. 6, Daruma Dropper, which released multiple side slashes from top to bottom like a tornado. Afterwards, Kikoru urged Kafka to try transforming into Kaiju No. 8 again while the enemy still needed time to regenerate. When Kafka tried to transform, his consciousness was suddenly transported to a realm inside his mind, where he was with the kaiju that had entered his body. Startled, he received a vision where he successfully transformed, but the outcome was grim. He saw himself killing Kikoru and, When he looked behind, saw the corpses of his comrades and friends. Returning to his human form, he noticed blood on his hands. His attempt to transform into Kaiju number 8 had failed again, but now they realized it wasn't Kaiju number 9 suppressing this, it was his own fear. Since their plan didn't work, the enemy regenerated and quickly prepared 2 large, powerful explosive bullets. Both Kafka and Kikoru were hit by one each. Neither could dodge, and the bullets destroyed Kikoru's giant axe, which she had used to block the bullets, while Kafka took the full force of the attack. Kafka told Kikoru that he recognized the real reason he couldn't transform. It was because of his own fear of the kaiju completely absorbing his consciousness and the fear of all his allies dying by his hands. Kikoru, deeply insulted by Kafka's statement, questioned whether his problem was really that simple. How could he say that so casually after seeing her resilience in battle? Kafka fell silent, realizing his flawed way of thinking. His fear meant he was underestimating Kikoru, Mina, Hashina, Reno, and the entire squad, as well as his own abilities. Kikoru, remembering her mother, found Kafka's low regard for the defense force deeply insulting. Kafka knelt down and cried at Kikoru's words, realizing he had forgotten the power Kikoru possessed, who had even promised to kill him if he lost control of the kaiju. He recognized he needed to believe in and trust all his squad mates. Encouraged by this, Kafka shouted with great force, like a super saiyan. Kaiju number 9 and Kikoru looked at him as Kafka successfully transformed into Kaiju number 8. Meanwhile, on the front line against the numerous resurrected ant-type kaiju, AG and Ren struggled to break through due to the overwhelming number of enemies. However, they received news from the neutralization zone that Kafka had finally transformed. According to Narumi, it was now time to move on to phase 2 of the operation. Meanwhile, Ren questioned whether their decision to send Kikoru to Kafka was the right one. Finally, the duo of Kafka and Kikoru faced off against Kaiju number 9, who correctly suspected that Kafka was Kaiju number 8. Suddenly, the enemy emitted a shout that carried a sonic wave, resurrecting the kaiju that Kikoru had just defeated. Worse yet, the resurrected kaiju now sported new wings, and the enemy had evolved into a stronger form. Kikoru seemed to be having trouble, but suddenly, Kafka thanked her and admitted he still didn't fully trust himself. However, he had no doubt that he could fully trust his squad mates. Kikoru agreed, somewhat cutely. Kafka then asked her if she could handle all the resurrected ant-type kaiju. Kikoru agreed to the plan but jokingly warned Kafka that he had better defeat the kaiju boss because if not, she herself would kill him. Kafka confidently responded and ran straight towards Kaiju number 9 while Kikoru provided cover fire for him. Kafka continued to sprint towards the enemy, who taunted back, saying he was now stronger and his skin harder to penetrate. But Kafka ignored the taunts and kept charging forward. The enemy deployed 2 giant cannons aimed directly at Kafka to kill him. In the blink of an eye, Kafka suddenly appeared on the other side holding the enemy's core. The speed of his attack even caused a large hole in the body of the ant-type kaiju. Kaiju number 9 was surprised by the unexpected turn of events. However, it was revealed that the core Kafka was holding actually belonged to the ant-type kaiju that number 9 was riding. Showing his confidence, Kafka told the enemy that he already knew the real location of his core inside the ant-type kaiju. Number 9 couldn't believe Kafka figured this out so quickly and immediately unleashed a barrage of attacks out of nervousness. But Kafka effortlessly punched away all the bullets coming at him. He also realized that he hadn't yet used the full power of the kaiju inside him. Ironically, when the kaiju controlled his body, he learned how to use his own body better. In the duel of the 2 numbered kaiju, Kafka's newfound strength was clearly evident. He moved even faster using the boosters under his soles and could almost instantly flank the enemy. Number 9 momentarily thought he had predicted number 8's moves, but when he fired a straight shot, Kafka suddenly leaped up into the air. Following this, he used the boosters in his feet to descend with intense force directly towards number 9. The enemy froze in fear, realizing he had no chance to dodge or escape from Kafka's approaching attack. The enemy couldn't figure out what had changed in Kafka but knew that the power of Kaiju number 8 had multiplied tremendously, giving him a powerful punch overflowing with immense strength. The enemy and the ant-type kaiju were crushed, along with the ground itself. The force was so strong it seemed as if a meteor had fallen from outer space. Kikoru, Isao, and the entire group of researchers were shocked by the intensity of Kafka's attack using Kaiju number 8. Itami was incredibly impressed, smiling as if he had calmly won the lottery amidst the rubble. Kaiju number 9 was attempting to re-emerge, but it seemed unlikely since it could no longer regenerate, especially after sustaining damage to its core. As an emergency measure, it needed to fuse together with its other self that had split from it earlier. Thus, it telepathically called its Beta counterpart to come to its aid immediately. However, Beta was occupied fighting Narumi and couldn't afford to leave their duel. It was crucial for Beta to continue learning by observing and analyzing Narumi's moves, securing Kafka in case he went berserk, which remained a priority for the First Division. They did not want to rely solely on Kikoru for this responsibility. To quickly reach Kafka, Narumi decided to unleash 98% of his suit's combat power, confident that he could swiftly defeat Kaiju No. 9 Beta. Headquarters immediately declared the battle location a restricted area due to Narumi's full release of power. Narumi prepared to deliver his ultimate attack, while his opponent prepared to intensely observe and study Narumi's actions. No. 9 Beta initially took the hit from Narumi, which involved long-distance gun weapons. Narumi then continued to rain down more bullets, mixing in close-range slashes into his attack sequence. No. 9 Beta received a devastating combination of long and close-range attacks from a single individual. Suddenly, it managed to dodge all of Narumi's subsequent attacks, shocking Narumi and the researchers. Narumi prepared for another powerful slash but was taken aback when No. 9 Beta easily dodged and positioned itself for a counterattack. It was then that the defense force realized the opponent could adapt based on the data collected during battle. Fortunately, Narumi dodged the opponent's powerful counterattack just in time, but the battle was far from over. A multi-directional attack from kaiju explosives surrounded Narumi, appearing to extend from kaiju bodies used like extra-long limbs by No. 9 Beta. The opponent detonated all the explosives simultaneously, causing a massive explosion. Headquarters expressed concern for Narumi's well-being and were dismayed to learn that the opposing kaiju was evolving during the battle. This situation was more dire than what the 3rd Division had previously encountered. Facing an opponent that could study their abilities and adapt to their weaknesses was proving exceptionally challenging. Itami likened the adaptability of Kaiju No. 9 to the behavior of a virus. This posed a major threat, as it was the first time they had encountered such a kaiju type. Suddenly, Narumi reassured everyone over the communications from headquarters that he was unharmed and that everything would be fine because he remained more dangerous as a human than the kaiju opponent. Kaiju No. 9 Beta was stunned to see that Narumi had not sustained a single wound. Meanwhile, Isao remained calm, knowing Narumi had not yet shown his true capabilities. This was merely a warm-up for Narumi, who was now in the mood to hunt kaiju. Narumi's eyes emitted a strange figure resembling a cross or a four-leaf clover, which frightened the opponent. He couldn't believe that a human possessed eyes like a kaiju. Before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly had a large hole in his chest. He thought he had mastered Narumi's attack, so he was puzzled as to why he didn't see it coming. Unknown to him, Narumi was using RT-001, the first weaponized numbered kaiju derived from the retina of Kaiju No. 1, which gave Narumi eyes with super-enhanced X-ray vision. Kaiju No. 9 struggled to accept the truth. He couldn't understand how, even after studying Narumi's fighting style, he still couldn't evade Narumi's attacks. Despite knowing that Narumi hadn't shown increased speed, it felt like Narumi's attacks were landing before No. 9 could even react. Isao confirmed No. 9's suspicion. Narumi's eyes possessed the ability to see the future. These eyes could detect the signals emitted by a life form's brain and predict their anticipated movements based on the neural impulses sent to the motor neurons. Historical records of the defense force showed that Kaiju No. 1 had been a terrifying opponent due to this same power of unavoidable attacks. Now wielded by Narumi, this ability allowed him to easily pinpoint the core of the opposing kaiju. Panicked, Kaiju No. 9 no longer had enough time to study Narumi's movements. Narumi then unleashed the squadron-style bayonet technique No. 2, Salvo, a complex combination of slashes and gunfire that easily dismembered and destroyed kaiju bodies. Once again, No. 9 experienced his body being cut in half. Narumi and Isao maintained their composure, which was greatly reassuring. Headquarters soon announced that Narumi and Kaiju No. 8 had successfully eliminated Kaiju No. 9. With the main kaiju defeated, the revived and evolved ant-type kaiju also began to perish. The defense force officers celebrated their victory, but Isao's daughter Kikoru preemptively urged them not to celebrate prematurely, as there were still remaining yoju that needed to be swiftly eliminated. The chief was amazed by Kikoru's natural leadership and fortitude. Itami also recognized the improvements in both Kikoru and Narumi, consistently surprised by the talents and development of the younger generation. AG expressed admiration for their success in defeating two kaiju while minimizing casualties and swiftly eliminating all remaining threats. The report said that only 2 of the defense lines were broken through and the amount of damage is unbelievably small. Isao remarked that they had easily exceeded his expectations, witnessing his daughter and the unit effectively combat all the kaiju. With all the beasts subjugated, Eiji turned to see both Kaiju No. 8 and Narumi, the two key agents in their victory. The Shinagawa subjugation operation was now complete. Eiji understood what director Isao Shinomiya had envisioned, the strongest unit with the most powerful class of kaiju in history and Japan's most formidable anti-kaiju combatants allied. Kafka then reverted to his human form with Kikoru watching him. Kikoru was panting with exhaustion. Kikoru and Kafka shared a fist bump as they celebrated their victory. Isao then praised the three heroes, Narumi, Kafka, and Kikoru, over the comms, causing Kikoru to blush with rare joy at receiving her father's commendation. As the officers prepared for their next orders, Narumi contemplated. He had a bad feeling, remembering what the enemy had said to Kafka earlier. The other reason mentioned and how it was delivered remained unclear to him. While trying to analyze the enemy's words, the characters suddenly received emergency communications from headquarters. Out of nowhere, there was another kaiju reading in their area. Then, the kaiju corpse of Kaiju No. 9 Alpha, which Kafka had defeated, suddenly spoke, saying it still had time to make a clutch move. It regretted not managing to kill Kaiju No. 8, but it still hoped to achieve its second goal of stealing great kaiju power. Kafka wondered what it meant. Suddenly, Kikoru heard panic over the comms from the headquarters base. It turned out that another body of Kaiju No. 9 was still alive and would suddenly emerge inside the HQ base where Isao was. The base is the new target now because it is where the weaponized Kaiju No. 2 is located, including its only compatible user. When Kaiju No. 9 revealed its secondary goal to Kafka, Kafka realized that all the battles were merely a diversion because No. 9's true main goal was to obtain the kaiju power of No. 2, which was with Isao. Thus, the version of Kaiju No. 9 that appeared at the HQ base was actually its true main body. Kafka promptly reported his discovery to Narumi, realizing that they had only been fighting decoys. Narumi and Kafka rushed to the headquarters as the life of Director General Isao Shinomiya was now in grave danger. Upon learning this, Kikoru, Isao's daughter, quickly went to see her father, her happiness turning into intense worry. The fear and anxiety were evident on the faces of the personnel at HQ, so when Isao ordered everyone to evacuate, they promptly ran. However, as people scrambled, Kaiju No. 9 fired a powerful shot that was going to hit several people. The impact was tremendous, but no one was injured because Isao quickly intervened, using the case of the kaiju weapon as a shield. Once Isao realized that the true target was the weaponized Kaiju No. 2, he called Itomi and another high-ranking official with an eye patch named Najizaka. He instructed them to ensure everyone evacuated safely while he confronted the enemy alone. Initially, Najizaka was reluctant to leave because he wanted to help the general, but Itomi convinced him that they would only be a hindrance if they joined the fight now. Isao opened the case he was carrying and unleashed the weaponized Kaiju No. 2. As No. 9 stretched, it expressed disbelief at how quickly its beta and gamma versions, which were equivalent to its previous weaker version, had been defeated so quickly. The general remembered his goal to create a division so powerful it could defeat all future kaiju threats, but he hadn't anticipated such a rapid evolution of the enemy. The duel between Kaiju No. 9 and the Director General then began. No. 9 threw a straight right punch, and Isao countered with a straight left. Their fists clashing caused an explosion that emitted a bright and powerful light. Itami hurried the evacuation to avoid personnel being caught in the intense fight. He noticed that Kaiju No. 9 was now stronger than the report they had received from the 3rd Division, but he believed that Isao could still handle it in its current state. Suddenly, No. 9 landed a powerful punch on Isao, driving him into the ground. Itami and Najizaka were deeply concerned when they saw Isao bloodied, his entire left arm destroyed by the enemy. No. 9 wondered to himself why he had become so much stronger. Itami was alarmed and the general was furious at the unexpected strength of his opponent. No. 9 then delivered a devastating downward punch with 3 levels of speed aimed at the prone Isao. Surprisingly, Isao managed to raise his right fist, strengthened by fond memories of his wife and daughter. Isao vowed to kill Kaiju No. 9 that very day. Meanwhile, Narumi tried to contact headquarters, but their network was down, leaving him worried about the ongoing situation with the general, who continued to fight while his personnel evacuated. Despite being at a disadvantage, Isao remained determined as the enemy regenerated continuously. While his left arm was injured, his assistant informed him that all personnel had evacuated and it was time for him to do the same. However, Isao replied that escaping was pointless as the enemy could easily track him down. After a moment of silence, the assistant decided to stay and fight alongside Isao, no matter the outcome. Appreciating this, Isao accepted his assistant's resilience, and they prepared to face the enemy together. The assistant noticed that the general planned to use the full release of his kaiju weapon, aware that the more power used, the more stress it put on the user's body. Still, given the situation, it was worth it for the next level of power that emerged, resembling a daikaiju but in human form. With the full release activated, their fists collided again, producing a powerful shockwave felt by his assistant. The power of the fully released kaiju weapon number 2 was immense. However, they were both shocked that it was still not enough to defeat the enemy, and Isao even sustained damage to his right arm. Instead of feeling pain or fear, number 9 was excited to experience the power of number 2 firsthand. The general planted his right foot firmly on the ground to deliver a powerful right uppercut known as squadron-style combat technique number 4, Rising Blast. He immediately followed it with technique number 1, Barrage Blast, landing a direct hit on the enemy's cheek. The impact strength was evident as the head of number 9 was completely obliterated from its body, yet it still spoke, asking Isao for more demonstrations, which surprised him. Next, they exchanged a series of punches and unleashed a barrage of attacks on each other. Due to the enemy's immense strength, Isao's assistant bypassed the circuits of Isao's right arm to unleash even greater power. However, he faced a problem, as with every punch he delivered, he realized he was not as strong as he had been in his prime years when he fought side by side with his wife, Hikari. He suddenly felt intense pain as a punch landed on his body, and he had sustained chest damage, which further weakened his power output, prompting his assistant to activate the recovery mode of his suit. Despite the onslaught of punches from the enemy that forced Isao on the defensive, his suit's recovery capabilities could not keep up with the damage received. So, he then confidently spoke to his assistant, Kurusu, stressing the need to be resilient so they could together defeat their current foe, especially since it was unlikely that any help would arrive in time. It was time to unleash their full offensive power and set aside the suit's defensive capabilities, as remaining defensive would only lead to their demise. The muscle fibers of Kaiju number 2 allowed the general to take over Isao's body and force the repair of his left arm. Kurusu warned that this was dangerous and very risky, and it would likely render Isao incapable of fighting after their battle. However, Isao was determined and at peace, trusting in the next generation of promising defense force officers. At this singular moment in the battle, Isao was willing to risk his life to kill Kaiju number 9, understanding what his wife Hikari had felt when she sacrificed her life to kill Kaiju number 6. As the enemy launched another downward punch, Isao saw a flashback of his wife's concern when their daughter Kikoru expressed a desire to join the defense force. Isao thought it natural, but Hikari planned to train Kikoru intensely to ensure she could survive the dangers of their jobs. This memory sparked tremendous power within the general. He managed to catch the enemy's punch, knowing he had been stingy with his daughter in giving attention, love, and affection. His power levels were now extremely high due to his heightened emotions, as his primary goal was to eliminate the powerful enemy before him, for the future of his beloved daughter. The super strong punch Isao delivered caused a massive hole in the enemy, nearly obliterating it. Isao's eyes blazed with emotion for his daughter and the cherished memories of his late wife, giving him the strength to unleash a powerful directed energy attack. Kurusu vividly remembered this as the same ultimate attack used by Kaiju number 2 to destroy the city of Sapporo, and knew Isao's body likely couldn't handle it. Kaiju number 9 was nearly depleted, its teeth shattered, finally revealing its core in the chest area. However, it gleefully claimed to have evolved enough to protect itself. As it began to shift into a defensive form, the enemy was shocked and anxious when it realized Isao had a second attack to deliver. Disbelieving the power from a human, Isao's eyes widened in fury as he threw another punch, so powerful it knocked the enemy back and caused it to fragment and collapse. This shocking event was felt by all evacuees, including Kafka, who suddenly noticed Narumi beside him. The two exchanged worried glances for Isao and their comrades, and hurried to the headquarters together. Kurusu, though injured, managed to stand and quickly assess Isao's condition, finding him seemingly drained of strength and unable to move, standing before the battered remains of Kaiju number 9. Suddenly, a silhouette of a figure emerged from the rounded body of the enemy, even managing to speak. The enemy praised Isao's effort for completely crushing its body, even in its fully powered-up defensive form. Number 9 fully dissolved, and Kurusu was pleased with what he saw. However, from the ashes, the core and inner body of the enemy remained intact, beginning to regenerate. The enemy remarked that if Isao had been a kaiju rather than human, he would have already won their fight. Kurusu panicked and urged Isao to fall back, but Isao, intent only on forcing another powerful attack, did not respond. Kurusu, tearful with worry and fear, watched as Kaiju number 9 called on number 2. The enemy began absorbing number 2 cells, sprouting multiple limbs with mouths targeting Isao and his kaiju weapon. As the smoke cleared from the battlefield, Kafka and Narumi arrived, finding Isao standing atop the corpse of Kaiju No. 9. The narrative briefly shifts to a flashback, where Narumi recalled that Isao had previously informed him of his plans to retire from combat once he completed forming the strongest division of the defense force. At the time of his stepping down, Isao intended to pass the torch to Narumi, along with the heavy responsibility of being the Defense Force Director General. Narumi and Kafka noticed Isao staring blankly into space, and initially thinking he was okay, Kafka quickly sensed something amiss, using his ability to sense kaiju. Kafka warned Narumi about their immediate threat. The figure before them was not Isao but the enemy, preparing a powerful attack from Kaiju No. 2. Narumi was stunned to realize they had missed saving Isao and had failed in their rescue. Kaiju No. 9 released the main burst, the strongest laser beam attack from Kaiju No. 2. Narumi and Kafka dodged, but still felt the intensity of the attack, which caused a massive bright explosion accompanied by a powerful shock wave. Kafka was thrown back but landed safely, unable to believe the enemy's displayed power, and questioned if this was still the Kaiju No. 9 he had previously fought, sensing it as a different kind of monster. This new evolved form of Kaiju No. 9 now had 6 eyes, having stolen the bodies of Isao and Kaiju No. 2. After recovering from the attack, Narumi immediately searched for Isao using his CS, and to his shock, the enemy responded, claiming to have killed Isao and infused with him. Kafka and Narumi, enraged by the news, were soon joined by Kikoru from above, who could not accept the enemy's claim as the daughter of Isao. In disbelief, she attacked the enemy, and Kafka was surprised to find Kikoru joining the fight, especially when Kaiju No. 9 transformed the left side of its face back to Isao to prove its claim. Kikoru was visibly shocked, and Kafka felt helpless to save her from the devastating news. As the enemy prepared another main burst, Narumi charged at it, activating his foresight powers and questioning what had been done to his mentor. He used his inescapable attack, which No. 9 already knew was the technique he used to kill his beta, followed by the squadron-style bayonet technique, vowing for the sake of his mentor that he would not let the enemy escape and he will make sure that the enemy will die by his own hands. Despite the enemy apologizing and attempting to flee with fly-like wings, Narumi was in disbelief that it even had the audacity to say goodbye. The enemy explained it was experiencing adverse side effects from the recent fusion. Disappointed, Narumi quickly vanished and leaped directly above the enemy, delivering an inescapable diving attack, determined not to let it escape. However, the enemy spoke again, acknowledging Narumi's effectiveness in combat against smaller numbers, but questioning his chances against an opponent with high defensive stats. Caught off guard, the enemy caught Narumi's weapon with its left hand and prepared to unleash an energy blast from its mouth, but Kaiju No. 8 intervened to assist Narumi. Kafka demanded the return of their Director General, attacking the enemy with a powerful left punch. The enemy, having adapted to No. 8's tactics, seemed unfazed. Kafka and Narumi were now facing a new, evolved enemy, vastly different from the Kaiju No. 9 they knew, presenting them with an unprecedented challenge. Kikoru kept on weeping as she came across the face of the enemy who had killed her father, yet she could only painfully watch the fierce battle between Kafka and Narumi versus Kaiju No. 9. The two gave everything they had, using their strength and speed to try to take down the enemy, yet they couldn't land a decisive blow. Despite their combined efforts, the enemy still managed to keep them at bay and fling them aside. When the enemy had a few seconds of rest, it immediately attempted to fly away, but it was immobilized because a flow of kaiju blood from its right shoulder revealed a sustained injury. Kafka and Narumi quickly noticed this and relentlessly attacked the enemy to prevent its escape. The enemy's entire arm was destroyed due to Narumi's inescapable attack on the injured area. The adverse effects of its newly fused body significantly reduced its defense stats, as it could not harden. Facing Kaiju No. 8, the enemy was at a disadvantage, as it was vulnerable to punches that shattered its body, further preventing its escape. The battle was emotionally charged as Isao had just died, and Kafka knew the deep impact on Kikoru, now facing the prospect of being orphaned. Kafka himself was deeply affected and, fueled by his emotions, delivered a powerful right hook that devastated the enemy's body. The enemy struggled with proper regeneration, pondering its options for a timely escape. Kaiju No. 9 had accumulated numerous wounds and injuries, and Kafka and Narumi were close to delivering the final blow needed to exterminate it. However, the enemy had one more move reserved for such a situation. It charged a powerful force from its core, felt intensely by Kafka and Narumi upon release. This released a massive AE attack, impacting the area from Kikoru, who worried for her comrades now airborne. Kaiju number 9's own attack had shattered its own midriff, leaving only its head, torso, and wings intact. Having reached its limit, it nearly destroyed its newly acquired body of Isao. To its surprise, Kafka and Narumi survived its powerful attack, and they were now ready to finish it. The enemy has devised a last-ditch move. Its head has split into two parts, each charging an energy blast. Narumi's foresight has revealed the targeted long-distance attacks aimed at Kurusu and Kikoru, who were not far from them. Narumi and Kafka rushed to save the targets from the impending attack. While Kaiju number 9 used Isao's left eye to ridicule them about their human instincts to save lives, it bid farewell to Kafka while wearing Isao's entire face as it flew away. It declared that when it comes back, it will be the fourth coming of the era of the Kaiju. Kaiju number 9 disappeared, and sadly, Kafka, Narumi, and Kikoru failed to save Isao and neutralize their enemy, standing broken and defeated. Kafka and Narumi at least managed to save Kikoru and Kurusu. Kafka couldn't shake off the last words of number 9, resonating with anger at the enemy wearing Isao's face as it said it. Out of furious rage, he screamed loudly on the top of his lungs. The whole defense force faced a significant defeat that day, but the war wasn't over, and they needed to remain strong. 2 days later, the public was informed about the tragic fate of the Director General of the Defense Force, who died in the line of duty. He was a true hero who had saved so many lives for more than 30 years of public service, bringing profound grief to everyone and most especially to his very organization. Everyone in the Defense Force attended Isao's funeral service, with Itami and Nagizaka in disbelief over the loss of a brilliant general and close comrade. Itami led the military funeral firing ceremony, and everyone cried to tears for Isao. Meanwhile, Kerr stayed alone in the late Director General's office, overwhelmed by sadness and unable to attend the funeral. Kafka understood Kikoru's immense grief, now being fully orphaned. Captain Narumi visited Kikoru in the office to inquire if she was sure about missing her father's funeral service. Kikoru responded with frustration about feeling useless, regretting not making it in time to even see her own father fight for their lives, and more regrettably, not being strong enough to have saved her father. Narumi sympathized with her feelings, assuring her not to blame herself as none of it was her fault. Kikoru, filled with mixed emotions, tearfully told Narumi that she wanted to become stronger. She believed her father's consciousness was still trapped within Kaiju number 9 and that she would only start mourning once the defense force neutralized their enemy. After wallowing, she apologized for her absence and for failing to control her emotions in front of her captain. Narumi understood Kikoru's strong will and advised her that the important thing for her now was to strengthen herself so that when they next faced the enemy, she would be nearly as strong as Narumi. He promised to teach her everything Isao had taught him, focusing only on results. Kikoru accepted Captain Narumi's words and agreed. Kafka, who had been eavesdropping outside the office, was also determined to grow stronger for their next encounter with Kaiju number 9. Yet, Kafka now faced a new troubling problem. A small part of his right hand seemed to have permanently become part of his kaiju form. He momentarily set this concern aside because his more pressing goal was to ensure he could beat number 9 in their next encounter. At the location of the Defense Force's skirmish against the Ant Kaiju, the Monster Sweeper crew has begun cleaning up the remains. Toku comments that the Kaiju's shells are too tough for their chainsaws to handle, as they cannot economize with a heat chainsaw. They decide to cut off the joints and destroy the remains in a bunker. Toku notices that the Monster Sweeper workers resemble ants while dissecting the kaiju. Akataka briefly pauses, wondering what will happen to them since a former invincible hero has been defeated. Toku overhears Akataka discussing preparations for a potential catastrophe caused by monster number 9, and people are already evacuating the country. Toku declares that he won't run and asks who will clean up the carcasses after the defense force defeats number 9 if they all flee. Akataka and Mori are shocked, and Toku walks away. At the Ariake coastal base, Kikoru is sparring with Rin using a wooden staff. Ren quickly disrupts Kikoru's rhythm, gaining the upper hand. Narumi, watching from the sidelines, comments that he's getting bored and wonders when Kikoru will reach the level where he could be her opponent. Narumi explains that all platoon leaders in the first unit have the potential to be commanders, and Kikoru needs to surpass them within about a month if she's not a prodigy of that level. Suddenly, AG kicks Narumi and tells him to start working. Kikoru asks Ren to spar again, thinking she needs to defeat their seniors within a month. Ren agrees, thinking the newbies trying to power up will hype up the seniors. AG asks Narumi if he's made a decision about what to do with Monster Number 8 now that Isao is gone. Suddenly, they receive a report regarding Monster Number 8, and they discover that Kafka's monsterization is progressing, with an area of his body not returning to human form. AG looks shocked, and Narumi just stares, realizing that if Kafka continues to transform, he might not be able to return to being human. Kafka is sitting on a rooftop, thinking that the defense force probably knew about his hand and he wondered if they would still let him fight regardless. He thought about not wanting to see his comrades hurt anymore, so he decided he would defeat Monster Number 9. Narumi then arrives and sits on the bench next to Kafka. They are silent for a moment, feeling each other out. Narumi then says he would get straight to the point. He explains that he couldn't keep Kafka in the defense force, knowing the reason why. If Kafka continued to transform, there was a chance he might not return to being human. Narumi says he couldn't allow someone in that condition to fight. Kafka has no choice but to agree, thinking to himself that he knew it would come to this. As Kafka is pondering his situation, Narumi suddenly says, keeping that in mind, he had something more to say to Kafka. Narumi then grabs Kafka's clothing and tells him to lend them his strength. The surprise is evident on Kafka's face, and his eyes widen. Narumi says who cares if Kafka becomes a monster permanently, all he would need to do is to kill Kafka when the time comes, but he doesn't care about that. What he wants to do is to kill Number 9, no matter what it takes. He asks Kafka if he wasn't thinking along the same lines. Narumi states that their true feelings of regret could only be understood by people like them who were there at the scene. He's sure that stopping is not the answer for Kafka. Narumi extends his hand, and Kafka mentions that he had a goal he was aiming to reach. Their chief had overcome all objections and had paved the way for him to reach that goal. After that, Kafka seriously agrees with Narumi's wishes and declares that he is ready. Narumi looks at him and as he walks away, includes him in his plans, saying that from here on, they would be the ones to act. We then go to room number 36 at the Defense Force base, where Hashina is apparently talking to someone. He finally says that the person he was talking to was awake and seemed to have slept soundly. It turned out that the individual he was speaking to was Kaiju number 10, which they had placed in an incubator. Hashina was intensely observing the monster that had attacked his soldiers in the 3rd unit.
Nobody got you the way I do.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more content. Feel free to leave a comment down below sharing your thoughts or suggestions. If you want to stay updated on our latest uploads, click the notification bell icon. And hey, why not check out some of our other videos popping up on the screen right now? If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really means a lot. Peace.